Areas of severe weather will be covering a large area of geography across parts of the lower Midwest, the Ohio and Tennessee Valley, the Mid-Atlantic states, right up to maybe touching southern New England. Heat advisories for the southeast and Gulf Coast, but the excessive heat has actually relaxed a bit and shifted to the west, where we have excessive heat expected from Arizona up and down the great state of California, with heat advisories further up the coast. And everybody else is enjoying a typical July summertime weekend. And so will we here on the Joe and Joe Weather Show on this Sunday, July the 2nd, brought to you by Omni True Value Hardware at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York. Get your truck over there and load it up with mulch, topsoil, sand, anything else you need to make sure that you've got the best looking house on the block. 631-756-1125 is the telephone number. Nowhere can you find better prices. I challenge you on that. And the website is
OmniTrueValue.com.
And also our affiliate Tempest by Weatherflow. Get the revolutionary Tempest weather system and join the fastest growing observing weather network on the planet. Mine showed me that I got to 90.7 yesterday for a high here in northeast Georgia for the first time this summer that it's hit 90 degrees here. The referral link is at the top of the chat board. It's also on the descriptor to this video. Use the coupon code Joe and Joe Weather Show, and you will get
10, not 9, not 5, not 6 or 8, but 10% off anything that you get from Tempest. And if you're looking around for a very, very good weather station, I'm sure Joe Cioffi has already.
Honestly, I really do like mine. It's once you install it, you can just go to sleep, and every time you want to check, you just look on your phone and open the app, and it keeps ongoing history of everyday highs and lows and how the temperature behaves. It's really cool.
On the chat board, singing as you are singing Tempest praises by saying, "I love my Tempest. So why are you not getting one?" And if you use the Joe and Joe
Weather Show, Joe and Joe Weather Show coupon code, don't make this commercial longer than it needs to be.
Well, anyway. I just want to make sure that they appreciate that we're providing.
They do.
Product or whatever. Yes,
they do. All right, we've got a lot going on this Sunday from the standpoint of the weekend, and it became pretty clear that of all the 3 weekend days, Sunday was probably going to be the most problematic, and we are here today with what looks like could be a fairly busy afternoon of thunderstorms and severe weather, not just here, but down through the middle Atlantic states, west of the Ohio and Tennessee Valley to the lower lakes. It's a fairly large area of severe weather possibilities here for late today, and tomorrow. Also looks like along the coastal plain from central New England all the way down to the southeast and then across into the Gulf states, there's another day where we could have some severe weather risk.
So this, as you just mentioned, a rather typical. I got to tell you something. Stepping outside this morning, I mean, yesterday wasn't great. Here in Putnam Valley, there was kind of a little mini Independence Day weekend celebration, which had such things as, people, little miniature flea markets. And last night there was a fireworks display. But I mean, yesterday was semi-tolerable in terms of humidity. But today, as Renato, mentioned to me when he stepped outside this morning, take the dog out, it's like walking into a damp sponge. I don't know how people were able to tolerate. I guess, we the human condition is we get acclimated, to heat and humidity. So if you didn't have access back in the day to an air conditioner or a fan, you just got used to it. But I don't know how you'd get used to it. I mean, Joe, we haven't had really anything in terms of extreme heat yet, but the humidity has just been, sky high, and it's been really tough. And then you throw in some haze and smoke, and that pretty much tells the story about Independence Day weekend 2023.
Well, at least from the standpoint of smoke, Joe, the good news from that end is that we're cut off from the flow in Canada. So the smoke is actually eased somewhat, and will continue to ease going into early next week. In fact, when we look at the watches and warnings map today, the one thing that caught my eye was the fact that, except for a handful of counties in northern Michigan, uh, there were no air quality alerts.
And that's nice. Whereas,
And I
whereas
no, and I was going to say, and I also contend that humidity is a 70 dew point here in where I am in northeast Georgia in the mountains feels a whole lot different than a 70 degree dew point did on Long Island, because unless you were right at the shore, the air just doesn't move. I mean, here, you know, the air is also cleaner, being up at 2,200 feet. It just feels different. It's not nearly as stifling. I sat outside yesterday when it was 90 with a dew point of 73, and it was fine.
well, yeah, but again, you get used to it after a little while. I mean, I know 50 years ago there was a tremendous total eclipse of the sun over the Sahara Desert, and there were expeditions that went into the Sahara, and the participants there who were set up in tents, mind you, for 2 weeks in the heat, the daylight, 115 to 125.
That's nuts. That's just
But,
nuts. I'm
but, but,
sorry.
they, but you know what? They said the air was so dry. You talk about dry heat in Arizona, 125 degrees. They said after a while you got used to it. And they actually said also at night the temperature fell to around 80, and there were people in the tents who were groping for
Oh
blankets.
yeah, no, no. Your body does your body does acclimate. It also acclimates to the cold. After that first really, really cold shot, when you spend days and days with temperatures
Yeah.
in the single digits and it goes up, even when it goes up into the 20s, as long as there's not much of a wind, uh, your body gets used to it, and it feels, you know, it I used to go out in January after long cold spells. You just get used to it and go out with not a whole lot of clothing on. Obviously, I'm not going to go out there in a bathing suit, but I used to go outside in shorts to do things
I
in
know,
the middle
yeah.
of
I
winter.
mean,
So
you're absolutely right. I remember there was one stretch, not recently, but way back when or whatever. We had a stretch of like temperatures were like during the day, 8, 12, 15 or whatever. And then finally one day the temperature popped to 25. And I said, people are dancing in the streets. They're running around with running around with short sleeve shirts on. Yeah, you do get used to it.
yep.
The body is amazing. Becoming acclimated. So I suppose, yeah, if we didn't have access to fans and air conditioners, settle in. It's another warm day, another humid day. Who cares?
Yep.
Ah,
Trish Sparacchio, the first hit of the tip jar, not only for the day but for the month of July, because we had a few days off. Welcome to everybody on the chat board today to take time out of your long holiday weekend uh, to watch the Joe and Joe Weather Show and participate in the Joe and Joe Weather Show, which you can do by just climbing onto the chat board. It's open to everyone as long as you behave and play nice in the sandbox. Subscribe to my YouTube channel so that you can watch the Joe and Joe Weather Show, which is on every day, Monday through Thursday at 7:35, Sundays at 11 a.m., and Fridays and Saturdays. Joe and I usually take those 2 days off unless there's some sort of weather apocalypse going on, in which case you can rest assured that we will be here to carry you through it. So, on that note, why don't we start? I'm going to start with, where did it go? Is this it? No, this is it. So I'm going to start with the watches and warnings map. And the reason why I'm going to do that is to illustrate just what I said earlier about the fact that these maps late last week were all covered in gray due to the air quality issues, particularly around the Great Lakes, which they've been dealing with this for almost 4 weeks plus on end here. So the northern third of the lower peninsula of Michigan has air quality alerts up, and that's it. Nothing in the Northeast, nothing in the Ohio Valley. Actually, a couple of counties around Chicago. I just noticed now No, I'm sorry. Those are red. Those are flash. That's flash flood warnings. I take it back. So just those counties up in northern Michigan. Also, the extreme heat. Now you got to remember your location makes a big difference here. So the high temperatures across the south are still going to be on the hot side today. We're looking at middle to upper 90s. Atlanta forecast to go to 94. I'm only forecast to get to about 87 here in northeast Georgia. And in fact, because we had a wicked thunderstorm yesterday evening after a day of sunshine. I mean, this thing had, you know, it was a severe thunderstorm. It had 50-mile-an-hour wind gusts at least. Trees, there's folks, especially on the south side of town, had a lot of tree damage from this. And then of course we had heavy rain. But we are at 11 o'clock, and I've only been able to move up, even though we've had sunshine all day. It's just 75, so temperature's going to be capped here, I think. And you'll notice the highs across the deep south are mostly middle and upper 90s, but in a lot of places, particularly in Texas, they're about 10 degrees lower than or more than they were last week. Hot spots down in South Texas, away from the Gulf Coast, where we're looking at temperatures well over 100, just inland of Corpus Christi and Brownsville. So that's where the heat is. And also, take a look at these temperatures that are forecast highs today in southwest in the southwest in Arizona, 115 for Phoenix, Joe. Vegas at 111, 110 or higher in the California desert areas, including Palm Springs, 109 in Fresno, 107 in Sacramento. I mean, and even closer to the coast, in some of the, I guess, the mountains where they get some downslope along the coast, temperatures also, I mean, not on the coast, but inland of the coast by a fair distance, but not way inland. Temperatures up to 100, well up over 100 degrees. So that the hot weather shifting west as the ridge is breaking down, and no sign of any kind of heat wave coming into the east, particularly the northeast, anytime soon.
No, and in fact, the Climate Prediction Center yesterday, their latest 6 to 10 and 8 to 14 day outlooks, and I'm going to bring that up right now to show you. If you're thinking that, eventually some of this exceedingly hot weather is going to streak into the eastern part of the country, it does not appear that, at least in the eyes of the long-range forecasters at the CPC, that is going to happen. In fact, if anything, they're calling for some lower than normal temperatures in the upcoming days to come. I'm talking about now, beginning 6 days out. I'm just, working here on getting this all up, and I'll share the screen in just a moment.
Take your time.
And
we have all day.
Where are we going, Joe? Well, let's go with 6 to 10. So there's a 6 to 10 day outlook. Can they see it? Or
yeah, they can see it. I can see it.
Very good. Very good. Now, this is for the period from the 7th through the 11th. So that would take us, oh, wait a minute. I didn't even change my calendar. Didn't flip the page. There we go. All right. So the 7th is next Friday. And you can see from next Friday on through next weekend into early the following week, we are, at least in the immediate tri-state area, we are in an area of gray, which indicates near normal conditions. But the area of rather hot or warmer than normal temperatures, the higher probabilities, are shifting north and east into New England. And coming in from the west, we have these areas of bluish contours indicating below normal. And a wide area of below normal temperatures by the end of this upcoming week, presumably, will be covering much of the plains, much of the Midwest, all the way down actually to you, Joe. I mean, they've got you in a slight below normal area of temperatures. And if we go beyond that to 8 to 14 days, you could see now that for the 9th through the 15th, that area below normal, it's shrunk a bit, but it still now has shifted eastward into the mid-Atlantic area and the Midwest and the Great Lakes. So And we'll take a look, I'm sure, at the upper air to see why the CPC is suggesting this. But apparently, we're going to be getting into a cooler airflow. Now, I know that these next several days coming up for the holiday and a few days beyond are going to be unusually warm, if not downright hot, here in the New York metropolitan area. But all of that falls through by the time we get to next weekend for some reason, and we'll take a look at that in just a moment.
Yeah. The overall pattern, just for the Northeast anyway, and for the Mid-Atlantic states, or a good portion of the Mid-Atlantic states, is one where, yeah, could it go to 90 degrees for a day or maybe 2 days, depending on the setup? Sure. But if you're thinking that we're going to get into something like a 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-degree stretch of 90-degree plus weather, that's not happening anytime soon. So we can put that to bed, and it continues to the pattern of what June was not a warm month. I don't know how they finished up the month, whether it was above normal or below normal. I would think it probably would have been a little bit below, but I know you never know. I might have forgotten a couple of warm stretches, but bottom line is, no heat waves are coming anytime soon. Meanwhile, today we've got a fairly aggressive-looking warm sector that is setting up the 12Z 8 a.m. Eastern Time surface map has a warm front in northern Connecticut, north of in the Hudson Valley, north of Poughkeepsie, to a low that's analyzed not too far from Syracuse, and then that front sort of snakes along back into southern Michigan to another low, the more important low in northeastern Illinois near Chicago. The trailing cold front runs south of there, down into Missouri. So this whole area here, that's to the east of this warm front. And I'm just going to center this map a bit better before I draw on it. No, let me see. I got to center it first and then draw on it. Okay, those are the rules. So right underneath this warm front, or all through here, all probably at risk for some severe weather today. And when I look at the dew points here are all in the low 70s, just about everywhere across Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Maryland, Delaware, Virginia, West Virginia, into Kentucky, Ohio. I mean, it's just a very juiced up atmosphere here, and we're not going to have really too much of a marine flow, because we're getting now to the time of year where the marine flow has less and less of an impact on these thunderstorms as they move eastward. So we're just going to have to keep an eye on the radar to see how they develop as we go through the day.
Yeah, and I'm just looking here. You're talking about heat and extensive heat waves at this particular time of the year. And back on this day in 1901, for the second day in a row, the high temperature reached 100. And that was the first time on record with back-to-back days in the triple digits at Central Park. It would be 25 years before this happened again. In total, 2 or more days in a row has happened 17 times, the last time being in 2011, that the temperature has gone back-to-back with 100-degree temperatures. I think maybe 2011, maybe I'm wrong, but I think 2011 may have been the last time, at least in my memory, we did hit 100. I don't remember in recent summers that we've seen temperatures that hot.
I can remember there was something that happened while we were working at FiOS. We had that one day where LaGuardia got to 106.
106?
Yeah.
Really?
I forgot what year it was, but somewhere between 2015, because I was there. I was there from 2015 to 2019. Somewhere in that stretch, we had a day where it got to 106. Now, what was the thing about 2011? Was that the last time we had back to back?
Yeah, the last
okay.
time. It would be 25 years before this happening. The last time being in 2011. Back-to-back 100-degree days.
Okay, so that might have been just a that must have been a one-off type of day.
Yeah.
Where we just had, 100-degree high and it wasn't consecutive. Maybe it was in a string of days where we got to the upper 90s and then there was that one really hot day. I got to remember what year it was.
In
Chuck Card,
contrast,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
in contrast, on this day in 2001, the morning low at Central Park was a refreshing 56 degrees, 12 degrees below average, and tying the record set way back in the year of the Great Blizzard, 1888. A cooler reading wouldn't be reported for more than 2 more months, 53, on September 14, 2001. But for the temperature to go down that low in New York City, I mean, into the 50s, anytime you get temperatures at this time of the year, July and August in the 50s, that is, savor it, because that don't happen very often.
Chuck Cardillo banged the tip jar. Thank you, Chuck. He says that the SOI, I'm thinking that's the Southern Oscillation Index, were very negative. There's so many acronyms, I can't even remember remember all of them anymore. They were very negative during May, and we're rapidly heading towards positive again, which is odd for an El Nino. He points out. Well, there's a lot of odd things that are happening right now.
I mean, they're saying, oh, this is going to be a massive El Nino coming up for the upcoming winter season. And, in my mind, at least, I agree with you, Chuck. If we do get an El Nino, I honestly think it's not going to be much of an El Nino. Maybe it'll be a weak El Nino. Now, I could be wrong. And look at me. I've been preaching about the fact about, how the heck can you make long-range forecasts and show there are already outlooks for the upcoming winter season? And here we are at the beginning of July. But I don't know. But the whole thing has been odd. I mean, that a few years ago, we were supposedly in a pattern where it was like a la nada, like a
right, nothing, and it behaved like a La Nina.
Right.
Right. And then last year's La Nina, when you look at what happened in the West, actually was more like an El Nino.
Right.
There are all sorts of there's all sorts of odd things that seem to be going on, and it's hard to really kind of get a grasp at, get a handle on what exactly is, what's the main driver of this? Is it stuff that's going on in the Arctic? Is it the NAO? Is it, whatever, any one of a long list of things we could point to. So that's why, I've always feel much more comfortable to focus on what's going on day to day, and maybe going out a week or 10 days, perhaps speculating about a month period. But beyond that, my view is all bets are off, and it'll be what it'll be.
It will.
Exactly. And by the way, go ahead.
Doris Day did a song about that, right?
Yes.
Hey, Sarah, Sarah.
Yes. She did it. She did it well.
Yes.
Environmental Coffee House. I like that. I like the handle there. Environmental Coffee House hitting the tip jar. Thank you, EC. And he says, he or she, so glad I found you guys during the Buffalo storm last winter, my favorite weather show. Thank you very much. We try to please. We try to please, and we try to have fun. And thanks for hitting the tip jar. The satellite loop, as you can see, here we are approaching the middle part of the day. Just not a whole lot of lightning strikes going on, but you do see the rotation of clouds in Illinois. So there's a nice little shortwave there that is moving eastward, and the skies are opening up to some sunshine in New Jersey and eastern Pennsylvania, and especially down in Maryland, Delaware, Virginia, and points further south. So the atmosphere is going to have plenty of time to undergo some daytime heating. So I guess the one issue is, this is one of those instances that if you're north and east of New York City, sometimes these warm fronts get hung up. The clouds, if the warm front goes by, the clouds don't completely get out of the way. You don't really get, the kind of daytime heating that you might see just a handful of miles to the southwest. And maybe that's why SPC has the cutoff of severe weather just north of New York City.
Yeah, that but it doesn't necessarily mean that they are precise cutoff lines. I mean, you could be near one of those lines, and we could still have a very potent storm. And in fact, we could have a storm. Yeah, all right, maybe not much in the way of hail or strong gusty winds, but you could still pick up with all of this moisture in the air. I don't know what the precipitable water levels happen to be for our neck of the woods, but any given storm probably could bring down a pretty good amount of rain in 10, 15, 20 minutes. So and quickly flood someplace out. So it's that's how it's going to be. We're going to have to play this game for the next few days until things start to change. And we'll talk about this in a few minutes. But by the end of the week and the start of next weekend, you talk about moisture. I mean, there's the potential, Joe. At least it looks to me, looking at the maps this morning, looks like we could find ourselves with a fairly substantial amount of rain coming our way, unfortunately, for next week. You get the impression, I'm getting the impression now, this is going to be one of those summers where every weekend, we get to every weekend and something's going to come along and, maybe not necessarily drown us, but, oh my God, another batch of cloud, more rain and and more thunderstorms. I don't know. I just get that impression that's what it's going to be like weekend after weekend after weekend.
The trough in the east doesn't want to go away.
Right.
Just as much as the trough in the west in the wintertime just would not stop. I mean, it was absolutely unrelenting.
It's kind of like that commercial.
Yeah.
The trough is kind of like that commercial for Geico, I think. Aunt Joni's here.
Hello. Yes. Our house has ants. That's a very clever commercial. Hey, I put up the radar, and while it's flowing in the background, David Scott poses an interesting question. He says, what is the daily impact of the daily quote-unquote haze from the smoke we're getting in terms of high temperatures? Does it seem like we're getting true sunny skies? I would just say, well, I guess I don't know what the answer to that question is. When you look at the totality of the Northeast and the Great Lakes and so on, I mean, I'm just looking on what I've observed. I don't think it's had much impact up or down, but that I could be wrong on that. I'd like to see somebody compile the data. But the temperatures have been pretty much behaving. The guidance comes out and gives a certain forecast. And, the numbers seem to be behaving in line. We haven't really had a lot of days where it's come way under because of the smoke. It may have come in way under because of the northeast wind or whether it was raining on that particular day. So I'm gonna punt to you, Mr. Rayo. Maybe you have you might have some thoughts on this.
I've asked that question more than a few times over the recent last month or so about whether or not there is a correlation in much the same way that volcanic ash and aerosol clouds, if there's enough of that stuff in the stratosphere, 10 to 20 miles above the Earth's surface, has been known to lower temperatures, average temperatures for a while. And I say, does smoke work the same way? But I really don't know. I can't say. Of course, when we talk about aerosol clouds, we're talking about ash and dust, we're talking about particulate matter of maybe upwards to perhaps a millimeter or so,
right.
Which doesn't sound like a whole heck of a lot, but in the overview of things, that would certainly be a lot larger than smoke particles, I would think. And so the solar incidence, in other words, the amount of solar radiation probably would get through a smoke cloud a lot easier as opposed to a cloud, an aerosol cloud, which contains all of that, if you'll pardon the expression, fat in the high levels of the atmosphere. So I'm not sure. I would guess now that would not likely lead to a prolonged period of below normal temperatures or have any effect. But I don't know. I'm not an expert in that regard.
Yeah, neither am I. So maybe in the coming days and weeks we'll probably see, somebody put something together that might clear this up. By the way, along the lines of temperatures, just to mention this, Mount Holly put out a statement the other day which caught my eye, mentioning that through the month of June, normally in Philadelphia would have had on an average year would have gone to 90 degrees or higher 7 times, and so far they've only seen 90 degrees one day. So it's just there's no hot weather around to speak of in the Northeast and Northern Mid-Atlantic states. It's there across the Deep South and into the Southwest. because that's where the ridge is. And Richie Comenzo hitting super chat. Thank you, Richie. It's a new name on the chat board. Welcome. I hope you. Well, I think you like the show because you hit the tip jar. So Joe and I both appreciate that very much. And I hope you're having a great holiday weekend. If you've got any questions or other comments, we'd be surely interested to hear what you have to say. And anybody to put up a question or comment. I try to scour the chat board as we go along, and so does Joe. We don't always get to see it, but we do the best we can. Meanwhile, the radar, as of 11:30 Eastern Time, the warm front rain is up in central and northern New England, and some of it's on the heavy side. There's still a few trailing showers down into central and eastern Connecticut and eastern Massachusetts. But the radars are quiet for the lower Hudson Valley, much of south coastal New England, Long Island, New Jersey, and going straight south. And then you start to see what will probably evolve into an arm of thunderstorms moving across western Pennsylvania down into West Virginia and western Virginia. So we'll watch to see how this fires up as we go through the day. And also, we've got some rain and thunderstorms and some flash flooding going on right now. Looks like we got 2 flash flood warnings covering the areas around Chicago. So they're getting hit pretty hard with some heavy rains there. And back into western Illinois, and you can see the curl on the satellite. So that's that rotation we saw on the radar, the curl, and that's the rotation that we saw on the satellite earlier. Otherwise, the west right now is just absolutely quiet, when we would expect it to be, and a few scattered showers down in parts of Texas and northern Mississippi, and that's just about it as far as the midday radar is concerned. The Storm Prediction Center, we have a potential severe thunderstorm watch likely here. So let's see what they're looking at here. So, by the way,
you're looking at mesoscale discussion.
Yes. So it is for me. Well, actually, not quite for me. I'm about 2 counties outside the easternmost part of that blue line. So this is their first outlook here. Thunderstorm coverage and intensity will gradually increase through midday, damaging gusts and hail. Possible severe thunderstorm watch likely from northeastern Mississippi, northeastward into southeastern Tennessee and northwestern Georgia. This is a good time to mention, folks, it's 11:32 a.m. Eastern Time, so if you're watching this at 3 o'clock in the afternoon or if you're watching this at 7 o'clock at night, obviously it's dated, so please go to weather.gov to make sure you get the latest in weather of the severe weather information that's out there from your local National Weather Service forecast office. That's weather.gov. If you want to go to the SPC website, the Storm Prediction Center, it's spc.noaa.gov. And the risk areas today, you can see a fairly large east-west oriented area of slight risk to about, say, just south of New York City, Route 78 in New Jersey, going east into Pennsylvania. So much of the southeastern half of Pennsylvania, also south central Pennsylvania down into Maryland, Delaware, all of Virginia, just about 2/3 of North Carolina, back to Tennessee, and then the northern parts of Mississippi, Alabama, and Georgia. Enhanced risk is indicated for Kentucky, parts of Kentucky, and into Tennessee. Actually, almost all of Kentucky and north central Tennessee. Tornado risk is not overly elevated today. There's the issue is going to be wind. For the areas to the east, there is a 2% in that enhanced risk for severe weather. So this is more of a wind situation than it is anything else. And they have a 30% probability in that enhanced risk of wind gusts or 50 knots or higher, but they do not have a hatched area of 65 knots or greater. So at least for now. Perhaps the radars may tell them to do otherwise a bit later on. Now tomorrow, with the weather front, the cold front getting closer, tomorrow might also be an interesting day from the standpoint of severe weather. We have a marginal risk up to central New England, slight risk. I was thinking yesterday in some of the stuff that I wrote for my website and for Newsbreak, where a lot of things that I write wind up on Newsbreak, and also for my folks on my subscription site on Patreon. that I thought SPC would expand the area. Yesterday they only had a narrow marginal risk along the coast, but instead today they have beefed it up. And now we've added that slight risk area from central New Jersey all the way down into South Carolina. We don't want to ignore the northern plains. We have an east-west area of slight risk there, from Minnesota west into southern Montana and northern Wyoming. And the tornado risk tomorrow is 2% in eastern Virginia and into North Carolina, and also 2% in that stripe across to the Dakotas. The wind is going to be an issue tomorrow. It's 15% probability, 5% in the marginal risk zone. And for day three, which is Tuesday into Wednesday, they have a marginal risk from southern New Jersey, Joe, down through the mid-Atlantic into the southeast and back across the interior parts of the Gulf states. A big area of slight risk in Minnesota, Wisconsin, down through Iowa, Nebraska, and on up into northern Kansas and back to northeastern Colorado. I left for Tuesday. I just kind of mentioned that there was a shot for maybe an isolated shower or thunderstorm for the 4th of July, but I think for the most part Tuesday it's going to be okay for eastern Pennsylvania to southern New England.
Yeah, I think so too. You know, one of the things that we don't ever seem to see, and it seems like whenever we get around to New Year's Eve, for example, when it's time for the ball drop, I've always said in my many, many years of life on this planet, I've often said, gee, just once I'd like to see a major snowstorm, a big blizzard hit at the same time that they were supposed to drop the ball, just to see how many people would show up at Times Square. And similarly, with the famous Macy's fireworks display that goes off at around 9 or 9:30 on 4th of July, Independence Day, I've often wondered what would they do if they had, one of those heavy-duty bouts of heavy rain or showers or even a big thunderstorm occurring just as that fireworks show is about to begin. And we've never seen that either. And it always seems like, those two holidays, those two periods, always, the adverse weather stays away just long enough so that they don't have to deal with that. And as far as Tuesday is concerned, I agree with you, Joe. They're going to be hit or miss, and a lot more misses than hits in terms of showers and storms on Tuesday. Yeah, maybe one of them will pop at around 9 o'clock in Midtown Manhattan or whatever like that. But more likely, if it does happen at all in the New York metropolitan area, will happen during the afternoon or even in the early part of the day. And hopefully it'll stay away in time for the pyrotechnics on Tuesday evening.
Storm Prediction Center has stuff in their long range, which is usually an indicator that there's a high confidence that it's going to happen. Day 4, which is Wednesday and Thursday, Missouri to Wisconsin in that corridor there, and also from northwest Texas northwestward up into central Colorado. 15% would be the equivalent of a slight risk. And day 5, and that is the next day period, Thursday and Friday, it's all in the western plains. And that runs from northwest Texas, pushing further north into eastern Wyoming, western Nebraska, and a small quarter of southwestern South Dakota. Rainfall-wise, now this map pretty much says it all. If you're anywhere east of the Rockies over the next 7 days, you stand a fairly good chance of getting anywhere from 3/4 of an inch to 1.5 inches from whatever thunderstorms are going on. In the east, up and down the east coast, just inland of the coast, and then extending down to coastal Virginia, down into North and South Carolina, it's 1.5 to 2.5 inches in that north-south band. But the vast majority of everywhere east of the Rockies is going to get some rain in the next 7 days at some point. But I would venture to say that if you broke it down into the number of hours that were raining over the course of a 168-hour period, that probably maybe 80% of that time, if not more, would be rain-free. And you just get it in the other 20%. So, 4 out of every 5 hours is not too shabby an outlook. And the West, of course, very quiet with no rain. And you wouldn't expect to see too much there during the summer season. So let's take a look at, as Mr. Rayo pointed out earlier, it'd be a good idea to look at the upper air today. And in fact, it's a good idea to look at it every day. It's all about troughs in the east. And as we go forward from the overnight guidance, guess what? It's still all about troughs in the east. You get these brief breaks as long as nothing sort of sits there for a long period of time. That's a good thing. Now, the two things to look at here on Tuesday, there is a just to go back to that smoke issue. There's a there's a flow here from Canada around the trough that's going to pull out now. Over the next 24 hours, 36 hours or so, and so we get a little bit of a flow coming back because there's an upper low sitting somewhere between east of New Brunswick and west of Newfoundland, right in there. What is that? The Gulf of St. Lawrence?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And then, of course, you've got another short wave that's getting ready to come down out of Canada right behind it. So there might be an opening for a little bit of smoke to come in again after Tuesday. Just putting that out there. But then that doesn't last long because the next trough dives into the Western Lakes as we head toward the end of the week, and just general troughing that exists from central Canada to the southeastern part of the U.S. And you'll notice that the other thing that changes, of course, if we go back a few days, when we had this big upper high sitting over Texas and Louisiana with the heat wave there, gets completely squashed. It's getting completely squashed right now, and that's why the temperatures have. I mean, it's still hot, but it's not. It's not 110. Okay, it's middle and upper 90s. Well, that ridge doesn't look like it wants to come back. If anything, it's sort of shifted westward into West Texas and Arizona, so you keep getting these troughs that keep trying to drop down into the eastern part of the United States. This is, Joe, I'm looking, just looking at the magnitude and the depth, the magnitude, the amplitude, and the depth of these troughs. Take a look at this. This is going deeper in the long range, and it might change, but look at how strong this upper low is. This is the weekend of July 14th, 15th in the eastern part of the United States. That is that's unusual. That's a cool, that's a very cool look if that were to verify.
Well, that's what we, at the beginning of the show, when I was showing the maps from CPC and showing that broad area of probability of cool temperatures occurring. And, you say, so, well, why would they be saying that? Well, there it is. Look, take a look at that flow. That is a cool airflow that is anticipated to envelop not only our area, but much of the Great Lakes and the Midwest during the second week of July. So that's why the anticipation for cooler than normal temperatures, and bring it on. Interestingly, Joe, we're here in the tri-state New York area, we may actually, at Central Park, actually have our first heat wave of the season, because it looks like temperatures on Wednesday and Thursday and Friday could very well hit or come within a degree or so of 90. But then things are going to change by next weekend, because it appears that there's going to be some kind of a coastal system that may bring a plethora of wet weather our way for, as I noted earlier, next weekend. So we'll
Yeah,
see how that.
if this next trough, the next trough that starts to drop in later this week, or initially at least, first drops down to our west. So yeah, that could open the door for some sort of, stalling front scenario, because there's no real push until you get past it into early next week, and then the trough begins to deepen in Canada and swings eastward. So yeah, I mean, the other thing I would say too is, and I don't have any specific insight, as I'm not a long range guy, but I will say that these troughs in the east keep dropping into the east, which is all fine and dandy now. But if we're still sitting in this pattern come August and September, when hurricane season starts to go into high gear, it might be Maybe this might be a setup with these troughs in the east like this. It might be more of a setup for storms off the east coast in one fashion or another, as opposed to, say, being in the Caribbean or the Gulf of Mexico. So something to think about here in terms of the long range implications of having a trough in the east as we go deeper into the summer months and get into to the heart of hurricane season. So anyway, that's just my little old never to be humble opinion. And as far as the day to day, we can get the GFS to put up the surface map.
Before you get into that, could you? I have shared right now in terms of today or tonight for the tri-state area. I have the whoops, sorry, I didn't mean to get the sounding up there.
There you go.
But I have the HRRR up for those of you who have plans for today.
Go for it.
Outdoor plans.
You have the NAM 3 up.
I have the NAM 3 kilometer up first, and that shows you that what we have for today, this is 13Z Sunday, so this would be 9 o'clock, already past that. So let's go to right about now, which is 17Z, or actually this would be right about now, right? 4-hour difference between. I hate daylight saving time.
17Z is 1 o'clock.
Yeah, so this is new. We're coming up on noontime, and as you can see, if you live in the immediate New York metropolitan area, I mean, projection is for some activity in Dutchess County, but generally speaking, for this afternoon, it should remain dry. It should. However, take a look at what the projection is for 3Z. This would be for 11 o'clock tonight. Now, if this pans out, I mean, you can see a lot of orange and red here. That would suggest there's a very weak upper level trough, but it just may be enough to serve as the catalyst to produce a band of locally heavy showers and thunderstorms, again, later this evening, on toward the midnight hour tonight. And if you're wondering if this is how other mesoscale or short-term models are indicating this, take a look at what the HRRR is. The HRRR, for the same time frame, not exact, of course, and in fact, I may even back up 1 hour. This is for 2Z, or 10 o'clock this evening. Both models, the 3 kilometer NAM and the HRRR, are red flagging the time frame around 10 or 11 o'clock tonight for potential heavy weather in the terms of showers and possible thunderstorms. But again, like the 3 kilometer NAM, the HRRR is showing mostly nothing. All right, on this one, 17Z, that's 1 o'clock, they have a very localized area of convection or shower cell passing over part of Putnam County. So they count on this for your day today. If you have anything planned out of doors, if you're planning a barbecue or some sort of outdoor get-together or whatever, you probably could do it, I would think, safely. Just watch the skies. If you're exceedingly unlucky, you might end up with one of these pop-up showers and storms, but much of the time it should be dry. However, if you're going to be out, let's say beyond 10 or 11 o'clock tonight, the weather may turn rather adverse very quickly. So keep that on the back of your mind for later tonight. And by the way, for tomorrow, I'm just looking ahead to tomorrow here.
If you use the 12Z HRRR, it goes out 48 hours.
Yeah,
so
I know.
I'm sorry. I just want
14. This is 14Z.
Right.
So if you take a look at the, as Joe said, the HRRR for tomorrow, what they have for tomorrow, I really don't have all that much for at least the morning, and maybe something popping by during the late afternoon and early evening. But really, it seems, Joe, that the only real bit of heavy weather that we're going to have to go through, at least over the next 24 to 36 hours, will be later tonight, again toward midnight. Otherwise,
yeah, I would just be a little careful with the HRRR beyond like 10 hours, because it has a habit of not showing stuff, and then it shows it, and then it disappears, and then it comes back. So I'd just be I think for tomorrow at least, the best thing in my mind in terms of its approach is that you still have the cold front to come through, you still have the short wave to come through, and you're still going to have a juiced up atmosphere. I definitely think today is probably the juicier day from the standpoint of severe weather than tomorrow, but I wouldn't rule out, certainly you got to put in the chance for showers and thunderstorms tomorrow.
Oh, of course. And as I said, the air is so humid that even a renegade shower or cell of heavy precipitation could dump a whole heck of a lot in a very short interval of time.
Leon Probitsky just dumped some coin into the tip jar, Joe. Thanks, Leon, for hitting super chat. And I'm not exactly sure what that is a figure of, but it's lifting up a cup of some sort. But thank you.
Is that a chalice?
It could be. All right, so let me just run through the GFS real quick because we're coming up on the noontime hour, and there's nothing, the GFS is actually a little bit more bullish. It's bullish today with showers and storms, and you see them here in the, moving through, and also in the Ohio Valley down into the southeast. It's got a lot of, clusters of showers and thunderstorms. I think that's how they'll look on the radar today. They'll probably be these clumps of thunderstorms. And then tomorrow, the GFS actually has also what looks like a broken area of clusters of thunderstorms from southern New England to southern New Jersey, down into Virginia, North Carolina, back up into the lower Tennessee Valley. We're just, whenever you deal with thunderstorms, you let the radar tell you what's going on. You can model it all you want, but it's never going to get the storms in the exact spots, especially when you start going out a day, 2 or 3 days ahead. So you look for the risks. The risks say it's risk on, and therefore you wait for the actual day and you just watch how the storms evolve on the radar, and you identify juicy patterns for storms. And as we said for Tuesday, some scattered stuff around being indicated. Maybe there's one last little upper trough that comes through, but hit or miss, and probably more miss than hit, I think is a pretty good way to go. And then Wednesday and Thursday look to be rain free. Friday, we start to see the approach of another cold front and the risk that there could be some showers and thunderstorms late in the day on Friday. And then the question becomes whether that front gets hung up to bring some more showers and storms over the weekend. I guess it depends on which run you look at. The 0Z run I didn't see, but I'll bring it up really quick because the 6Z has sort of backed off a bit on that. Let's see the 0Z, and these are storms. The GFS at least seems to have backed off on the front getting hung up and causing being problematic for the weekend, but that doesn't mean it can't come back. It does have a nice little low here for Sunday that runs up to our west with some really vigorous thunderstorms showing up for next Sunday. Boy, that's a pretty impressive looking front that's coming through. But
right,
that's in the long range. We'll probably see it come and go over the next couple of days before the model finally settles on. But with the troughs in the east, you have to recognize the possibility that it could happen. So and the tropics are quiet right now, so we really don't have too much to look at. The Pacific had 2 quick hurricanes that went goodbye, Adrian and Beatrice, the latter skimming along the coast of Mexico, southwestern Mexico, and then just weakened as they're prone to do. Both of them are gone now. So I like it. We'll keep it quiet for as long as we can. Robertson Manti, 95. A new name. Thank you. Thank you for hitting the tip jar. A lot of folks are having fun, must be having fun on this holiday weekend, and because they're banging the tip jar, which is great. And thank you. We both appreciate it. But I got to tell you real quick, Joe, it's amazing to me what people get bent out of shape over. So late last week, I post weather pieces. If you go to the community section of my YouTube channel every day in the morning, I post a weather piece, a link to my website. If you want more, there's other links there when you get to my website, describing what the weather's going to be like over the next 5 days in a general view of eastern Pennsylvania to southern New England. And one of the things that I pointed out, we talked about this last week, was that the 4th of July is on a Tuesday, okay, which means that it's not like the other holidays that they President's Day and all the rest of them, that they make them on a Monday so that everybody has a 3-day weekend. All right. But I pointed out that when 4th of July falls on a Tuesday or if it falls on a Thursday, you have a lot of folks that will take the Friday off, or they'll take the Monday off, or they'll take the Friday and Monday off. So I just kind of generically said that it was the long 4th of July weekend. And this person writes in a comment, got bent out of shape because, and probably because they have to work on Monday, and that's not my problem. But uh, they got bent out of shape that I referred to it as a long weekend, that Monday was not a weekend day. I mean, come on, really? You wasted what? A minute of your precious life's energy to type out the fact that I don't know that Monday is a holiday, isn't a holiday? Of course I know it isn't a holiday. But I shook my head when I'm reading this. I said, this is what you want to pick an argument with me about? The fact that I called it a long weekend because it was because 4th of July is on a Tuesday? I mean, really, seriously.
Next year,
Next year it's on a Wednesday, right?
no, it's on a Thursday because
Oh,
next
the
year's a
leap year. Yes, it's on a Thursday. So
so it's on
that makes it a long weekend the other way, because you'll have
right.
people taking Friday off. So it'll be Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And of course, you'll have those that'll take the Wednesday before, which is getaway day, to make the long weekend. Of course, you can't come back on a Sunday because there's too much traffic, so you take Monday off. So it becomes a 6-day holiday weekend.
See, if it were on a Wednesday next year, people would say, "Oh, Fourth of July is in the middle of the week, so why should I bother going in on Monday and Tuesday? And after I take off on Wednesday, I've only got 2 days, Thursday and Friday, so I might as well take those days off too." So you get an extended. You go from Saturday and Sunday before the holiday to Saturday and Sunday after the holiday. It's crazy. Yeah, it's the only holiday of all of the federal holidays that has not fallen to the Monday rule,
Right.
where Monday of the Monday closest. So there you go.
Well,
Take
it's
it as it is.
all right. So we're coming up on the noon hour, so I think this is a good time to wrap it up.
Well, before we
Wait,
wrap it up,
wait, wait. Let me do this first, and then we can
yeah.
come back. So the Joe and Joe Weather Show, brought to you by Tempest by WeatherFlow. Get the revolutionary Tempest weather system and join the fastest growing observing weather network on the planet. The link is pinned to the top of the chat board or on the descriptor to this video. They've got all sorts of other weather gadgets, gizmos, and even weather fashion. Use the coupon code Joe and Joe Weather Show, and you get 10% off your purchase. And also brought to you by Omni True Value Hardware at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York. 631-756-1125 is the telephone number for the best prices in town. OmniTrueValue.com is the website.
And I just wanted to say we were debating whether or not we should lead off with this piece of news or wait until the end of the show. But a person who all of us, at least everybody I know on the chat board, and probably many of the lurkers too, we all grew up with this man, and sadly, he passed away yesterday. Up until yesterday, of course, the living legend of New York television weather, Dr. Frank Field, who in March reached his centennial, his 100th birthday, and he made it, Joe, to 100 plus 3 months, but he passed away yesterday. And so we just, I want to say that, I grew up with him. I got involved with weather and got interested in weather because of Dr. Frank. Next to Walter Cronkite, I remember reading somewhere, next to Walter Cronkite, Frank Field was considered to be the second most reliable and most trusted man in America. And he was also a good sport. He, even though he was well known and highly regarded, and in terms of science reports and whatever, he still had a he had a run, and maybe tomorrow night I'll get a chance to show this. Those times when Johnny Carson, when
Yes.
Carson was doing the Tonight Show from New York, he and Frank Field used to go at each other on their respective programs. But it's great, and Frank again made it all the way to 100, and we honor him by saying, Frank, you did good.
Yes, he did. And from personal experience, just very quickly, we could probably talk about this more tomorrow. But from my own personal experience, because I got to work with Frank Field when he used to fill in for Willard Scott on the Today Show, and I was producing the weather portion of that show back in the early '80s when I was in my early 20s. Young kid, seeing somebody that he working with somebody that he saw on television growing up as a teenager and wanting to do weather. He was always, and I used to see him when I worked at the Weather Service. He would come in every day before he went on the air to get, whatever information he needed because there was no internet back then. Okay, so you did everything by hand, and he was always kind, gracious, a warm person. As I said, working with him directly was an honor and a privilege for me. And he also took the time out and the kindness to uh, look at my air work before I had gotten my first air job to at least tell me if I had a chance. And he looked at it and he told me to go for it. And I remembered that. And that's in juxtaposition to someone else who we won't mention that said exactly the opposite. So, but that's neither here nor there because if let me put it this way, if it was that other person passing, okay, it wouldn't be a moment of silence. It would be champagne for everybody. All right. And Frank would appreciate that because he would have known whom I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So anyway, on that note, yes, a great loss to a man, but also a man who led a great full life, uh, personally and also career-wise. And it's very sad. Condolences to his family if they're watching. It was a privilege to know him.
Yes.
And we will be back tomorrow night at 7:35 p.m. Joe will dig up stuff because he's good at digging up stuff with regarding Frank Field, and we'll see you everybody tomorrow. Thanks everybody for hitting the tip jar, and have a great rest of your holiday weekend. Tomorrow night, 7:35 p.m.
Have a good one, folks.
Bye.